The court said, the government may call its next witness.
Mr. Ferguson said, the government calls Douglas Skalka.
Douglas Skalka, called as a witness by the government, having been duly sworn, testified as follows.
The court said, please state your name and spell it.
The witness said, my name is Douglas Skalka, Skalka.
The court said, you may inquire.
Direct examination. By Mr. Ferguson.
Good morning, Mr. Skalka.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Mr. Ferguson said, Your Honor, just before we get started, if I may just offer an exhibit pursuant to a stipulation?
The court said yes. Go ahead.
Mr. Ferguson said, GXC 146 and GXC 146T.
Mr. Cumraju said, no objection, Your Honor.
The court said, they are admitted.
Government's Exhibits C-146, C-146, received in evidence. By Mr. Ferguson.
Mr. Skalka, what do you for work?
I'm an attorney in private practice.
What firm do you work at?
I work at the firm known as Newbert, Pepe and Monteith.
Mr. Skalka, you can adjust the microphone and you can pull it closer to you. What type of law do you practice?
I practice primarily in the area of bankruptcy and financial distress, creditors' rights. Commercial transactions involving financially distressed entities and assets. Those are my practice areas.
How long have you been bankruptcy-related law?
Approximately 35 years.
Are you familiar with the bankruptcy proceedings of Ho-Wan Kwok or Milesqua?
Yes, I am.
How are you familiar with that?
My firm Newbert, Pepe and Monteith has been retained as Connecticut Counsel and Conflicts Counsel for the Chapter 11 trustee appointed in Mr. Kwok's bankruptcy proceeding.
What name do you refer to him by?
I refer to him as Mr. Kwok or the debtor.
Where was Mr. Kwok's bankruptcy filed?
It was filed in the bankruptcy court for the District of Connecticut in Bridgeport, Connecticut.
What type of bankruptcy did Kwok file?
It's a Chapter 11 bankruptcy proceeding.
What typically happens in that type, the Chapter 11 proceeding that Mr. Kwok filed?
Chapter 11 bankruptcy proceedings are commonly referred to as reorganization proceedings, meaning that they're an effort by the debtor to reorganize their financial affairs with an effort to obtain a plan that's acceptable to the entity's creditors or the person's creditors and to emerge from the bankruptcy proceeding as a more viable entity with a plan acceptable to his or their creditors.
Is there a bankruptcy trustee in Mr. Kwok's Chapter 11 case?
Yes.
How was that trustee appointed at a high level?
The trustee was appointed by the bankruptcy court in the District of Connecticut. I believe the order was entered in June of 2022, and it was in response to a motion filed in the bankruptcy case.
And again, just at a high level, what is the trustee's role in Mr. Kwok's bankruptcy?
A Chapter 11 trustee, essentially the Chapter 11 trustee in Mr. Kwok's bankruptcy case, essentially steps in the shoes of the debtor and has all the powers and rights of a debtor. Which means he has the right to pursue the recovery of assets. To pursue claims to recover assets for the benefit of creditors. He also has a right to object to claims. And also to keep the court and the creditors advised of what is going on in the bankruptcy proceeding. Meaning he has to file monthly reports with the bankruptcy court.
You used the phrase creditor. What's a creditor?
A creditor is any party who has a claim against the debtor and a claim can be brought. And it's broadly defined under the bankruptcy code. Could be for a specific amount of money. An unknown amount of money. It could be a contingent claim. Those are all creditors.
The court said, do you mean a creditor is a person or an entity that believes that they are owed money?
The witness said, it could be owed money or property.
The court said, go ahead.
Mr. Skalka, without getting into any privileged areas or discussions, what role, if any, has your firm played as counsel to the trustee?
My firm was retained as Connecticut Counsel and Conflicts Counsel for the Chapter 11 trustee.
Again, without getting into any privileged stuff, at a high level. What sort of work have you done in the bankruptcy?
So in that role, myself and my firm, my colleagues, have filed pleadings on behalf of the trustee. Attended hearings on behalf of the trustee, pursued discovery from third parties on behalf of the trustee. including serving subpoenas on third parties to obtain information or documents from third parties. In connection with pleadings, we have filed lawsuits. We have filed motions. We have filed objections to other parties' motions.
Could you at a high level just please explain the process for your firm to be compensated for that work in the bankruptcy proceedings?
Yes. As a court-approved professional, which is what my firm is in the bankruptcy case, we are required to file what are called fee applications periodically with the bankruptcy court and seek to have our fees approved by the bankruptcy court. Those fee applications are subject to objections by any party in the bankruptcy case, as well as by the judge. The judge ultimately has the decision as to what fees are awarded and when they are paid.
Have your fees been paid in Mr. Kwok's bankruptcy so far?
Some of my firm's fees have been paid.
Now, generally speaking, how is a trustee compensated in a Chapter 11 case?
A Chapter 11 trustee like the Chapter 11 trustee in Mr. Kwok's case has the right to seek a commission under the Bankruptcy Code Commission, meaning a percentage of the funds that are recovered and run through the bankruptcy estate during the course of the bankruptcy case. The trustee has the right to seek that commission.
And what's your understanding of how Mr. Kwok's bankruptcy trustee is being compensated?
Mr. Kwok bankruptcy trustee.
The interpreter said, interpreter request all parties to slow down.
The court said, please slow down.
Mr. Skalka, what's your understanding of how Mr. Kwok's bankruptcy trustee is being compensated?
Mr. Kwok's bankruptcy trustee has indicated he is not going to seek commission as the trustee.
What is the trustee's name?
His name is Mr. Luck Despens.
Where does he work?
He is an attorney with the law firm of Paul Hastings.
And what kind of law does he practice?
He's a bankruptcy attorney.
What law firm is the main counsel or the primary counsel for the trustee?
The trustee retained his law firm Paul Hastings as lead counsel.
Is it common or uncommon for a trustee to hire his or her own bankruptcy practice?
When a trustee has a bankruptcy practice, sometimes trustees are not in bankruptcy firms. A trustee could be not even attorneys. But in this case, he's a bankruptcy attorney. And he has a bankruptcy practice, so it is common for trustees to retain their firms under these circumstances.
Has the trustee filed actions to recover funds related to the bankruptcy?
The interpreter said, Your Honor, if we may have both parties to slow down.
The court said, please speak slowly.
Has the trustee filed actions to recover funds related to the bankruptcy?
Yes, the trustee has commenced actions.
Approximately how many actions?
The trustee has commenced to date approximately 300 actions.
Approximately how much has been recovered to date?
To date, the trustee has recovered over $100 million.
Mr. Skalka, are you billing for your testimony today?
I am not.
Why are you testifying today?
I was requested to testify by your office.
How many times approximately have you met with the U.S. Attorney's Office to prepare for your testimony?
I have met with the U.S. Attorney's Office 3 times, twice remotely and once in person.
Now, Mr. Skalka, who is Mr. Kwok's largest known creditor?
Mr. Kwok's largest known creditor in the bankruptcy is an entity known as Pacific Alliance Asia Opportunity Fund.
Do you refer to that by any acronym?
Yes. That entity is commonly referred to in the bankruptcy case as PAX because frankly it's a lot to say Pacific Alliance Asia Opportunity Fund.
Can you spell PAX?
It's commonly spelled as PAX.
At a high level, what is PAX?
PAX is a fund that lends money to commercial enterprises.
And, Mr. Skalka, you could probably adjust the mic closer to your mouth. If you could keep your voice up slightly. It's difficult to hear.
I'll get a little bit closer. Sorry.
Perfect. Thank you. Now, really quick, Mr. Skalka, could you spell the last name of the trustee for us?
Despens, Despins.
Now, going back to PAX. As part of your involvement in Mr. Kwok's bankruptcy, have you become familiar with the litigation between PAX and Mr. Kwok?
Yes, I have.
Prior to the bankruptcy filing, was there a lawsuit between PAX and Mr. Kwok?
Yes.
What was PAX's claim against Mr. Kwok?
Pax claimed that Mr. Kwok had signed a personal guarantee related to a loan that was made by PAX to a commercial enterprise, a business known as Shiny Time Holding. And PAX was seeking to recover that loan that it had made to Shiny Times Holding from Mr. Kwok.
In layman's terms, what's a personal guarantee?
It is a separate contract between a lender and the person who signs the personal guarantee, which essentially says if the party that the loan is made to doesn't pay the loan for whatever reason. The person who signs the personal guarantee, often referred to as the guarantor, is essentially saying, I'm going to be obligated to pay the loan if the party, the borrower, doesn't pay the loan for whatever reason.
Where was Pax's lawsuit regarding the personal guarantee filed?
It's filed in the New York Supreme Court.
And when approximately did PAX file this lawsuit in New York Supreme Court?
In 2017.
And by the way, that court, is that state court or federal court?
That is a state court.
At a high level, what kind of document did PAX file to start the lawsuit?
The document they filed was called a complaint.
Just again at a very high level, what's a complaint?
A complaint is a document that commences a piece of litigation. It states the claim that the plaintiff, who is the party that starts the litigation. The claim of the plaintiff against a defendant or defendants, that claim is set forth in the complaint.
Did Mr. Kwok file an answer?
Yes.
And what's an answer? Again, just very high level.
High level is the answer is. Again, a document filed in the lawsuit responding to the claims asserted in the plaintiff's complaint.
And, Mr. Skalka, do you recall what PAX alleged in the complaint that it had done prior to 2017 to recover the alleged debt?
Yes. The complaint indicates that there were efforts made by PAX to collect on its loan from Shiny Times and I believe Mr. Kwok. And that there had been negotiations and even a potential settlement reached at one point. But the complaint indicates that that settlement fell apart or didn't go forward for some reason.
What's a demand letter?
A demand letter is a letter that is what it sounds like. It's a letter written usually to a party that is owed, may owe money to the sender of the letter. It's a demand to pay on a debt.
And were there, if ever, demand letters sent by PAX?
Mr. Kumraju said, objection to personal knowledge, Your Honor.
Mr. Ferguson said, I can rephrase, Your Honor.
The court said, go ahead.
Do you recall if PAX alleged they had sent demand letters?
Mr. Kumraju said, objection to relevance.
The court said, if you'll set up.
Continued on next page. At the sidebar.
The court said, is the complaint in evidence?
Mr. Ferguson said, it's not. I think I can move on. My only question, if I may ask Mr. Kumraju just a question. We can maybe resolve this. Is there going to be cross on the complaint that's filed in response to him being a Chinese dissident?
Mr. Kumraju said, I'm going to ask the date when it was filed. That's all.
Mr. Ferguson said, if I need to get into this, I think we can address it on redirect. I'll move on for now.
The court said, thank you.
Continued on next page. In open court. By Mr. Ferguson.
Mr. Skalka, at a high level, did Mr. Kwok's answer admit or deny the allegations?
Mr. Kwok's answer denied the allegation in the complaint.
What, if anything, happened with the PAX lawsuit?
PAX at some point in the litigation filed what's referred to as a motion of summary judgment seeking a judgment on its complaint against Mr. Kwok.
Was there a summary judgment ruling in the PAX case?
Yes.
And at a high level, what was the ruling?
The court granted the motion filed by PAX and entered judgment against Mr. Kwok.
And what, if any, damages were awarded as well?
The court entered a judgment in the amount of roughly $114 million.
And approximately when was that entered?
September of 2020.
And at a high level, what was the basis for that amount of damages?
That was the principal amount of the loan plus interest and I believe some attorney's fees.
What, if any, efforts did PAX make to collect on that judgment?
Soon after the court granted the summary judgment motion, PAX filed a motion for a restraining order to restrain the debtor or Mr. Kwok from transferring assets outside of the jurisdiction.
And were any restraining orders entered?
Yes.
What is a restraining order?
It's an order from the court to restrain a party from doing something. In this case it was an effort to restrain the debtor Mr. Kwok from transferring assets.
Ms. Loftus, if we could show the witness what's marked as Government Exhibit 1416. What's this document? Mr. Skalka?
This is a copy of the restraining order entered by the New York Supreme Court on October 15, 2020.
Mr. Ferguson said, the government offers Government Exhibit 1416.
Mr. Kamaraju said, no objection.
The court said, it is admitted.
Government's Exhibit 1416 received in evidence. By Mr. Ferguson.
Mr. Skalka, what date was this filed?
It was entered, I believe, on October 15, 2020.
And if we could, Ms. Loftus, maybe we can make the text a little larger just for reading. Mr. Skalka. Could you please read these paragraphs, please?
On October 15, 2020. The court held oral argument via Microsoft Teams with counsel for all parties participating on plaintiff's motion for a post-judgment restraining order pursuant to CPLR 5229, Motion 011. On September 15, 2020. The court granted summary judgment in favor of plaintiff on liability with damages on the issue of whether the corporate defendants are defendant Kwok's alter egos to be determined at a later date.
If you could just read the next paragraph.
Plaintiff's motion for a restraining order pursuant to CPLR 5229 is granted. Mr. Kwok is restrained from making or causing any sale, assignment, transfer or interference with any property in which he has an interest, whether directly or indirectly, and from paying over or otherwise disposing of any debt now due or thereafter coming due to him subject to the exception set forth in CPLR 5222 in accordance with the proceedings on the record of October 15, 2020. Specifically, Mr. Kwok and or the registered owners of 1. the residence at the Sherry Netherland Hotel, and 2. the yacht, the Lady May, are restrained from making or causing any sale, assignment, transfer or interference with those assets.
Mr. Skalka, some of this refers to the word plaintiff. Who is the plaintiff in this case?
Pax.
And there's a reference to alter ego. What's an alter ego?
An alter ego is a related entity or an entity that is controlled by a third party.
And focusing you on the bottom paragraph number 1, the residence at the Sherry Netherland Hotel. Are you familiar with that residence?
I am in the context of the Kwok's bankruptcy proceeding.
What's your understanding of the residence being referred to?
I believe it refers to the co-op that it is owned by an entity known as Jennifer Holdings, LLC. It owns actually the shares in that co-op.
What kind of apartment was it?
It's a penthouse apartment at the property known as the Sherry Netherlands Hotel on 5th Avenue, New York City.
What, if any, were their collection efforts with respect to the Sherry Netherland apartment?
Yes. Pax was seeking to recover its judgment or its claim from the asset known as the Sherry Netherland Hotel apartment.
What, if anything, happened with those efforts?
I'm sorry. I didn't hear your question.
What, if anything, happened with Pax's efforts to collect on the apartment?
Shortly after the entry of this order, Jennifer Holdings, LLC, filed its own Chapter 11 bankruptcy proceedings. So that automatically stayed or stopped Pax's efforts to collect from that entity.
Why did it filing for bankruptcy automatically stop those efforts?
Under the Bankruptcy Code, any bankruptcy filing creates what is known as an automatic stay. It's under Section 362 of the Bankruptcy Code. That stays all efforts by any creditor to try to collect from the debtor while they're in bankruptcy unless they obtain bankruptcy court relief to do so.
Focusing on number 2, the yacht, the Lady May. What, if any, efforts did PAX make to collect via the yacht?
Well, in this case they had obtained this restraining order. And I believe they were in the process of trying to collect their judgment from the Lady May.
Do you recall withdrawn? What of note happened next with respect to the Lady May?
According to the pleadings in this case, the Lady May was moved outside of the jurisdiction of the New York Supreme Court. And PAX filed a motion for contempt against Mr. Kwok for allegedly violating this restraining order by moving the boat outside of the jurisdiction of the court.
What is contempt?
Contempt in this case is knowingly violating the court's order.
If we could show the witness what's marked as Government Exhibit 1413. Was the motion for contempt granted?
Yes, it was.
Is this the order of contempt?
What I'm looking at now is a copy of the final order of contempt which was entered in February of 2022.
Mr. Ferguson said, Government offers Government Exhibit 1413.
Mr. Cumraju said, subject to our prior objection, no objection at this time.
The court said, all righty.
Government's Exhibit 1413 received in evidence. By Mr. Ferguson.
While we're waiting, Mr. Skalka, what date was this final order of civil contempt entered?
February 9, 2022.
Ms. Loftus, if we could zoom on the actual text, the bottom half. Mr. Skalka, could you please read the first paragraph?
Whereas this court's conditional order of civil contempt, dated March 16, 2021, directed that if defendant Kwok Ho-won
Kwok failed to return the Lady May yacht, the Lady May, to the jurisdiction of this court by May 15, 2021, he would be subject to a $500,000 fine for each day that the Lady May remained outside of the jurisdiction.
And if you could read the next line, please.
Whereas the Lady May was not returned to the jurisdiction by May 15, 2021.
And if you could go ahead and read the next one, please.
Whereas on November 4, 2021, the Appellate Division's First Department affirmed this court's order holding Kwok in conditional civil contempt, finding that the daily fine of $500,000 was intended to strongly encourage defendant to purge himself of the contempt, which despite being permitted 2 months to accomplish, he has shown no interest in doing, and instructing this court to proceed with an evidentiary hearing to resolve a dispute as to ownership and control of the yacht and to assess appropriate penalties.
The court said, one moment please.
Pause.
The court said, you may continue.
Mr. Skalka, if you could read the last line on this page.
Whereas Kwok to date has failed to return the Lady May to the jurisdiction.
Ms. Loftus, if you could go to the next page, please. Why don't we zoom on the top half first? Could you continue, Mr. Skalka?
Whereas the evidentiary hearing specified by the First Department's November 4, 2021, order was held on February 2, 2022.
And if you could read the next line, please.
Whereas both Kwok and the registered title holder of the Lady May, HK International Funds Investments, USA, Limited, LLC, appeared at the hearing by counsel, proffered evidence and were represented by counsel.
Who is the owner, Mr. Skalka? Of HK International Funds Investments or the registered owner of HK International Funds Investments USA Limited, LLC?
Maygwa.
What relationship, if any, did Maygwa have to Mr. Kwok?
Maygwa is Mr. Kwok's daughter.
The evidentiary hearing reference here which family members, if any, testified at that hearing?
Mr. Cumraju said, objection, personal knowledge.
The court said, if you know.
Which family members, if any, testified at that hearing?
The pleadings indicate that Maygwa testified at the hearing.
If you could continue and read the third paragraph, please.
Whereas based on the evidence adduced at the hearing, the court determines that PAX has clearly and convincingly established that Kwok has a beneficial interest in and control over the Lady May as set forth in the court's February 9, 2022 decision and order.
What is a beneficial interest, Mr. Skalka? What's your understanding?
My understanding of beneficial interest as used in this order is that he had. If he didn't have title to this property, he had some interest in the property. Some ownership interest in the property.
If we can scroll down. It says that accordingly it is hereby ordered, adjudged, and decreed that. And there's a list where several things. Could you please read number 1?
Kwok has violated New York Judiciary Law Section 753 and is in civil contempt of this court's order.
And number 2?
Kwok is directed to tender immediate payment to PAX in the amount of $134 million representing $500,000 for each day between May 15, 2021 and February 7, 2022.
And number 3?
The amount due to PAX shall continue to accrue at the rate of $500,000 per day until Kwok returns the Lady May to the jurisdiction, which additional accrual shall begin 10 business days from service of this order with notice of entry.
And number 4, please.
Payment of the amount set forth in paragraph 2 above shall be made to PAX within 5 business days of the service of this order with notice of entry.
And number 5?
The court shall exercise its full authority under New York Judiciary Law Section 753 in the event the fine is not timely paid to PAX.
And what authority besides filings does the court have under that law?
The court under that statute also has the right to issue what are called capias orders.
What does that mean?
An arrest warrant.
Mr. Skalka, focusing you on number 4, approximately how long did Mr. Kwok, have to pay the $134 million?
He had 5 business days.
Did Mr. Kwok in fact make that payment?
No.
What happened instead?
On February 15, 2022, the Chapter 11 bankruptcy filing was made in the District of Connecticut.
And how soon was that filing made withdrawn? What was the timing of that filing with respect to the deadline to pay the $134 million?
It was 6 days. I believe it's within the 5 business days though of this order. It's 6 days after the entry of this order from Judge Ostrager.
Can we show the witness what's marked as Government Exhibit 1407? Mr. Skalka, what's this document?
This is a copy of the voluntarily petition filed by Mr. Kwok on February 15, 2022 in the District of Connecticut.
Mr. Ferguson said, Government offers Government Exhibit 1407.
Mr. Cumraju said, no objection.
The court said, it is admitted.
Government's Exhibit 1407 received in evidence. By Mr. Ferguson.
Ms. Loftus, maybe we can just blow up the middle portion perhaps. Underneath about debtor 1. What name is listed there?
Ho-Wan Kwok.
And what are the other names listed beneath that?
Miles Kwok, Miles Gua, Wingue Gua.
And to the right of that it says about debtor 2, and in parenthesis spouse only in a joint case. Is that filled out?
No.
What is the name of Mr. Kwok's spouse?
Hing Chi Nok.
Could you spell that for the court report, please?
HINGCHINGOK.
Ms. Loftus, if we can go to page 2, please. If we could zoom on where you live. What did Mr. Kwok put for where he lives?
He put an address care of Golden Spring, New York Limited at 162 East 64th Street in New York.
Ms. Loftus, let's go to page 7, please. If we can zoom on the bottom half. Mr. Skalka, in number 18. How many creditors did Mr. Kwok estimate he owed?
He estimated that he had somewhere between 50 to 99 creditors.
And how much did he estimate that he owned in assets?
He indicated that he had assets worth between $50,001 and $100,000.
And focusing you on the bottom left, who signed this?
Mr. Kwok.
Now we can take that down, Ms. Loftus. Mr. Skalka. Did filing for a bankruptcy resolve the issue with the Lady May?
No, it did not.
Did there come a time when an agreement was reached to hold funds in escrow as security for the Lady May?
Yes.
Ultimately, how much was put into escrow?
$37 million.
And who were the parties to that agreement?
It was an agreement reached between PAX, Mr. Kwok, the Creditors Committee, which was a committee appointed by the U.S. Bankruptcy Court in the District of Connecticut, and HK, what I refer to as HK USA.
Just remind us, what is HK USA?
It was the entity owned by May Gua that claimed to be the title holder to the Lady May.
What was the source of the $37 million that was put into escrow pursuant to that agreement?
The source was a loan made to HK USA.
Ms. Loftus, if we could show the witness what's marked as Government Exhibit 1314. Mr. Ferguson said, may I have just a quick moment, Your Honor?
The court said, go ahead.
While we're waiting, Mr. Skalka. Do you recall the date the loan agreement was executed or the date on the loan agreement?
I believe it was April 19, 2022.
And just for context, about how long after the filing of Mr. Kwok's bankruptcy is that?
It's approximately 2 months after the filing.
Can you see it on your screen, Mr. Skalka?
Yes.
What is this document?
This is a copy of the loan agreement between HK International Funds Investment USA Limited LLC and Himalaya International Financial Group, Ltd.
Mr. Ferguson said, the government offers Government Exhibit 1314.
Mr. Cumraju said, no objection, Your Honor.
The court said, it is admitted.
Government's Exhibit 1314 received in evidence. By Mr. Ferguson.
Now that we can see it, Ms. Loftus, if you can zoom in on the text on the cover page. So it says dated 19th of April, 2022. Do you see that, Mr. Skalka?
Yes.
Can you read who this loan agreement is between?
Loan agreement between HK International Funds Investments USA Limited LLC and Himalaya International Financial Group Ltd.
Let's go to page 2, Ms. Loftus, if we could just keep scrolling down. Just to focus on the bottom line there where it says the yacht. Can you read what's just in the quotation mark after the yacht, Mr. Skalka?
Lady May.
And if we can go to page 4, please, and scroll down. Mr. Skalka. Under purpose, if you could read 3.1 and 3.2?
Yes. The total facility amount will be paid into an escrow account as agreed between the parties in writing, the escrow account, as per this agreement. The total facility amount will be used as security for the court in relation to the yacht. The period the borrower retained the total facility amount in the escrow account will be the time period from the date of this agreement to when the yacht is returned to the USA. The borrower will make all reasonable efforts for the prompt return of the yacht.
And focusing on 2.1, what was the amount, what was the facility amount?
$37 million.
If we could go to page 5, please, focusing you on 4.3. Could you read 4.3?
The total facility amount shall be secured against the yacht and all other assets of the company directly and indirectly and shall take priority against all other liability or debts claim against the borrower.
At a high level, what does it mean for the loan to be secured against the yacht?
This indicates that there was going to be a lien against the yacht. That's the security that I believe the lender was looking for.
If we can go to page 13. Mr. Skalka, who signed for what you called HKUSA, I believe?
Megwa.
And what is her position listed as?
She's listed as the sole member of that LLC.
And who signed for Himalaya International Financial Group?
I do not recognize the signature.
Is there a title listed for that person?
No.
Is there a name listed for that person?
No.
What does it say?
It just says authorized signature.
If we could show the witness, Ms. Loftus, Government Exhibit 1316. What's this document, Mr. Skalka?
This document is a side letter to the loan agreement that we just looked at. The loan agreement dated April 19, 2022 between HKUSA and Himalaya International Financial Group.
Mr. Ferguson said, Government offers Government Exhibit 1316. Honor?
Mr. Cumraju said, can I have one moment real quick, Your?
The court said yes.
Mr. Cumraju said, no objection, Your Honor.
The court said, it is admitted.
Government's Exhibit 1316 received in evidence. By Mr. Ferguson.
Thank you. Mr. Skalka, you said side letter, very high level. What's a side letter to an agreement?
It's an amendment. This is designed to be an amendment to the loan agreement. So it has some new terms or revised terms.
Focusing you sort of on the upper left, what's the date of this letter?
April 29, 2022.
Is this between the same parties as the loan agreement we just looked at?
Yes, it is.
If we could focus, Ms. Loftus, on January 2nd and January 3rd. Mr. Skalka, I'll ask you to just read 1.3, please. Through the subparagraph?
In consideration of the sum of £1 we agree as follows. A. The loan in the loan agreement will no longer be deemed to be secured against the yacht. B. The borrower will instead provide a personal guarantee, a signed copy of which has been received. C. The terms.
That's actually okay. Mr. Skalka, in 1.3 where it says in consideration of. What's your understanding of what that means in this context?
There were some considerations for the change in the terms of the loan agreement so that it would no longer be secured. But there'd be a personal guarantee.
In layman's terms, what consideration?
Some value in this case. It was only £1. but layman's terms it is some value.
And, Ms. Loftus, if we could show what's marked actually, if we could scroll down quickly to page 2. If we could zoom on the signatures. Is there a signature for HKUSA?
Yes.
Is there a name listed?
No.
What's the position listed?
Director.
What was the position listed on the loan?
Sole member.
And then for Himalaya International Financial Group, who signed there?
I don't recognize the signature.
Is there a name listed?
There is a name. There's a signature. There's no name listed.
Let's show what's marked as Government Exhibit 1315 just for the witness, please. What's this document? Mr. Skalka?
This is a copy of a guarantee agreement.
Mr. Ferguson said, Government offers Government Exhibit 1315.
Mr. Kamaraju said, no objection.
The court said, it is admitted.
Government's Exhibit 1315 received in evidence. By Mr. Ferguson.
Mr. Skalka, who is this guarantee agreement between?
It is between Megwa and the Himalaya International Financial Group, Ltd.
And the document we looked at earlier referenced a personal guarantee. At a high level, what is this agreement about?
This is a personal guarantee from Megwa indicating that she's personally guaranteeing the obligation between HK International Funds Investments USA, as I refer to as HK USA, and Himalaya International Financial Group.
If we can scroll down, Ms. Loftus, to the signature page. Who signed it?
Megwa.
How does this kind of agreement compare to the one that PAX had alleged Mr. Kwok had given?
Mr. Kamaraju said, objection to form.
The court said, sustained.
If we could go now, Ms. Loftus, to Government Exhibit show the witness only please. What's marked as Government Exhibit 1303? What's this document, Mr. Skalka?
This is a draft loan agreement between Hong Kong International Fund Limited and ACA Capital Group Limited.
Was this document produced to the trustee in discovery?
Yes.
Who was it produced by?
Counsel for HK USA.
That's the registered title holder of the Lady May?
Yes. 1303.
Mr. Ferguson said, Government offers Government Exhibit.
Mr. Kamaraju said, no objection.
The court said, it is admitted.
Government's Exhibit 1303 received in evidence. By Mr. Ferguson.
If we can publish, please. Mr. Skalka, who is the draft loan agreement between?
Hong Kong International Fund Limited and ACA Capital Group Limited.
If we could scroll down now. Mr. Skalka. Do you know why the lender was changed from ACA Capital Group to Himalaya Entity?
I do not.
If we can keep scrolling down and we can just go all the way down to page 15, Ms. Loftus. Mr. Skalka. Could you read the first signature line, the entity for the first signature line?
Hong Kong International Fund Limited.
And could you read the second entity?
Fortress Spark Limited.
Do you know what Fortress Spark Limited is?
I do not.
To your knowledge, has Fortress Spark Limited otherwise come up in Mr. Kwok's bankruptcy?
Not to my knowledge.
We could take that down, Ms. Loftus. Mr. Skalka, was $37 million ultimately put into escrow?
Yes.
And who received those funds first?
The loan proceeds went to HK USA's counsel in the bankruptcy case.
And what was the name of their counsel?
The law firm of Zeisler and Zeisler.
Who, if anyone, else did Zeisler and Zeisler come to represent in the bankruptcy?
They also represented Megwa, and subsequently they've also become counsel for Mr. Kwok.
Ms. Loftus, if we could show the witness, these are 4 docs. These are government exhibits, Mr. Skalka. Before we do that, I'll tell you, Ms. Loftus, 1419, 1420, 1421, and 1422. While we're waiting, Mr. Skalka, what, if anything, happened in the PAX case after the $37 million was put in escrow with respect to the yacht?
The PAX case was stayed as a result of the bankruptcy filings. So there was no further action being taken in the PAX case while the bankruptcy case was pending.
Mr. Skalka, are you able to see what these documents are at a high level?
Yes, I could see them.
Are these filings by Mr. Kwok and his attorney in the bankruptcy regarding his assets?
Yes, his assets and his liabilities.
Mr. Ferguson said, the government offers Government Exhibit 1419 through 1422.
Mr. Kamaraju said, no objection.
The court said, they're admitted.
Government's Exhibits 1419, 1420, 1421, and 1422 received in evidence. By Mr. Ferguson.
Ms. Loftus, if we could zoom first on 1421. Mr. Skalka. This says declaration about an individual's debtor schedule. Could you read in the bottom left there's a signature? Could you read the text above the signature?
Under penalty of perjury, I declare that I have read the summary and schedules filed with this declaration and that they are true and accurate.
And who signed this?
Mr. Kwok.
And what was the date?
March 9, 2022.
Now, Ms. Loftus, let's just go to, if we could, just pull up Government Exhibit 1420. If we could zoom. Ms. Loftus, on the middle portion on Official Form 106. Mr. Skalka, at a high level, what kind of filing is this?
These are referred to as bankruptcy schedules that need to be filed by any debtor in any bankruptcy case filed in the United States. These are government forms. And this particular document I'm looking at is a summary of the assets and liabilities that had been set forth by the debtor on the various schedules.
What was the total value in real estate assets Mr. Kwok claimed?
0.
What was the total value in personal property Mr. Kwok claimed?
$3,850.
And under Part 2, how much in liabilities did Mr. Kwok claim?
$373,803,498.09.
How much income did Mr. Kwok claim to have?
0.
What about expenses?
0.
If we could go to page 3 of this, Ms. Loftus. If we could, again. You can blow up about the same portion as we did last time. Mr. Skalka. What did Mr. Kwok say in response whether he had any legal or equitable interest in real estate?
He said none. He didn't have any.
What did Mr. Kwok say about interest in any vehicles?
He said no, he didn't have any.
What about interest in any watercraft?
He said no, he didn't have any.
What about any legal or equitable interest in any household goods and furnishings?
He indicated no, he didn't have any interest.
What about electronics?
He did indicate yes that he had an interest in electronics.
And if we could scroll down, Ms. Loftus. What did he list for electronics?
An iPhone.
And what was the value of that?
Unknown.
If we could scroll down a little bit more. Now, in addition to the iPhone, what other assets did Mr. Kwok declare in this form?
He indicated that he had some clothing. He had a family dog.
What kind of dog?
A Pomeranian.
And what were the value of these assets?
Unknown.
If we could go to page 5, please. What did he list as assets on this page?
He listed that he had some tax refund checks to him from the state of New York and some COVID relief check that had not been negotiated.
Ms. Loftus, if we can now go to Government Exhibit 1419. Maybe we can zoom in on the top half. Mr. Skalka. At a high level, what was this document?
These were notes and statements filed by the debtor counsel describing some limitations as to the disclosure set forth in the debtor schedule that we just looked at and some other responses to questions related to what's called the Statement of Financial Affairs, which we haven't seen. But that's another form that needs to be filled out by a debtor in any bankruptcy case.
Ms. Loftus, if we could zoom out, and if we could go down to page 4. Mr. Skalka. Could you please read question 1?
Do you own or have any illegal or equitable interest in any residence, building, land or similar property?
Can you read the first entry, Mr. Skalka, just for reference, when we looked at the earlier document? How did Mr. Kwok answer that question on that document?
On the schedules in the other document he said he had Northwest interest in real estate.
And could you read bullet number 1 under that?
The debtor has use and occupancy of real estate located at 373 Taconic Road, Greenwich, Connecticut, residence. The debtor has no legal title to the residence and no court has made any determination that the debtor has any other interest equitable or otherwise in it. All related costs and expenses associated with the residence are paid directly by family and family-controlled enterprises. The residence is owned by Greenwich Land, LLC, Greenwich Land. The sole member of Greenwich Land is the debtor's spouse.
And if we could scroll down to number 2. I'll ask you if you could just read. Why don't you just read the first 2 sentences?
The debtor also has access to an apartment located at the Sherry Netherland Hotel, 781 Fifth Avenue, New York, New York 10022, the apartment. The cooperative shares in the apartment are held by Jennifer Holdings, LLC, the USSPV, the membership interest.
Mr. Skalka, could you just skipping down a couple of sentences read the sentence that starts the debtor's son?
The debtor's son owns the equity of the apartment owner. On or about the trust date, the apartment owner funded the USSPV with the purchase price for the apartment. These funds came from entities owned or controlled by the debtor's son and not from the debtor.
And Ms. Loftus, if we can zoom out, and if you can just scroll slightly to page 4. Now, Mr. Skalka, are any other properties discussed under that question?
No.
By the way, did Mr. Kwok claim to have an interest in either of these properties that are discussed?
No.
Now, do these discuss at all a property in Mowat, New Jersey?
They do not.
Let's go to page 6, Ms. Loftus, please. If we could zoom on paragraph J, please. Could you read question 17?
Question 17, deposits of money.
And what do these notes say in response to that?
These notes make reference to a restraining order entered in Hong Kong in 2018.
If you could read starting at the second sentence just the restraint order?
The restraint order stated that it would remain in force up to and including April 30, 2019. With the understanding that it would remain in effect pursuant to a further order of the High Court entered on May 3, 2019. The effect of the restraint order was to freeze 3.7 million Hong Kong dollars. Hong Kong dollars of funds alleged to belong to the debtor, as much as billions more of funds and property, including real estate in Hong Kong of individuals and entities purportedly subject to the debtor's effective control, according to the restraint order, were also frozen and or seized. Due to the freezing/seizure of these assets, the debtor does not include them in his estate.
And if we could go to page 7, please. If we could zoom on the very top paragraph there. If you could read the first sentence there, please.
In September and October 2017, the Chinese government raided the office of Shiny Times and seized all accounting corporate records and many personal financial records.
Can you remind us, Mr. Skalka, what, if any, relevance did Shiny Times have to the PAX case?
Shiny Time Holdings was their full name, was the borrowing entity in the loan from PAX, and the entity that Mr. Kwok personally guaranteed the obligation.
If we could go to page 8, please, and if we could zoom on question 26 just at the top, please. Question 26, an underline says, patent, copyrights, trademarks, trade secrets and other intellectual property. Could you please read Mr. Kwok's note to that answer?
The debtor has possible unregistered copyrights and other intellectual property interest in music and videos posted to various digital and media platforms, such as YouTube, GTV, Twitter and Getter. The debtor ascribes no value to his social media assets and has made no attempts to monetize his social media presence.
What's your understanding of ascribes no value to these assets?
My understanding was that thought that there was no value to these assets.
Ms. Loftus, we can take it down. If we could, Ms. Loftus, show the witness what's marked as Government Exhibit 1401A. While that comes up, Mr. Skalka, what's a meeting of creditors in a bankruptcy?
In every Chapter 11 bankruptcy case, the court soon after the filing of the case sets up a creditors' meeting. It's under Section 341 of the Bankruptcy Code, in which all creditors in the case are invited to attend and could ask questions. But the meeting itself is run by the Office of the United States Trustee and the debtor is required to appear at the meeting and answer questions under oath.
Did those occur in Mr. Kwok's bankruptcy?
Yes.
Mr. Skalka, what is Government Exhibit 1401A?
This is a portion of the transcript of the creditors' meetings held in Mr. Kwok's bankruptcy case on March 21, 2022.
Mr. Ferguson said, the government offers Government Exhibit 1401A.
Mr. Kamaraju said, no objection.
The court said, it is admitted.
Government's Exhibit 1401A received in evidence. By Mr. Ferguson.
Now, Mr. Skalka, in this excerpt who is being questioned?
Mr. Kwok is being questioned.
And so where it says Q&A, what does Q&A stand for?
Question for Q and A is answer.
Now, if I could ask. I'll read the question, and if you want to read the answers of Mr. Kwok, does Golden Spring own that building that's located at that address?
I don't know.
Have you ever been to that address?
Yes.
What type of building is it? What's located there?
It was a building.
Is the building a residential building or commercial building?
Business building.
And then there's some back and forth with Claiborne and the interpreter. Just for reference, Mr. Skalka. Who is Ms. Claiborne?
She's an attorney with the U.S. Trustee's office in Connecticut.
Is that the office you said runs these meetings?
In Connecticut, yes.
I'll continue here. Does anyone live at that address?
I don't know.
What type of business does Golden Spring do?
It's a big family business. My son works. But I don't know specifically what categories of business it has.
Mr. Kwok, when you use the term,
it is a family office owned by my son. He has other businesses, but I don't know.
Mr. Kwok, when you use the term family business or family office, what do you mean by those terms?
It's mainly for the whole family, all the family members. When there is something we, indiscernible, and help each other.
Mr. Kwok, can you explain in more detail?
I don't know how to explain.
Does Golden Spring have any employees?
Yes.
How many?
I don't know.
Does Golden Spring own any real estate?
I don't know.
Does Golden Spring own any other business?
I don't know.
Does Golden Spring have any bank accounts?
I don't know.
Mr. Kwok. You previously said in documents filed with the bankruptcy court that Golden Spring pays for your personal living expenses. Can you please explain how they do that?
I don't know what you mean by they pay me. In what regard?
Mr. Kwok. You previously told the court in your bankruptcy documents that Golden Spring pays for your clothing, your food, and your housing. My question is, how they do that? Do they give you money? Do they pay other people directly? How does it work?
Whenever I need any expenses for my basic living, I talk to my son and he will tell his office to give it to me.
Who are the owners of Golden Spring? And then there's back and forth, and we can scroll down, skip over that. If you could, Mr. Skalka. You can start after it says the interpreter. I'll repeat the interpretation, starting with when I need. It's the third line.
When I need expenses for my basic living, I tell my son. My son will tell the office to take.
Mr. Kwok, who are the owners of Golden Spring?
My son.
Are there any other owners of Golden Spring other than your son?
No.
Mr. Kwok, have you ever owned an interest in Golden Spring?
No.
Who are the officers and directors of Golden Spring? And we could scroll down. I'll read again. It says by Ms. Claiborne. Mr. Kwok, as of today, who are the officers of Golden Spring?
Indiscernible.
I'm going to repeat that name so everyone understands what I thought I heard. What I heard was Yenping, also known as Yvonne Wang. Is that accurate?
Yes.
Is Yvonne Wang the only officer of Golden Spring?
I don't know.
As of today, who are the directors of Golden Spring?
I don't know.
Mr. Kwok, have you ever been a director of Golden Spring?
I don't remember.
Mr. Kwok, who is Max Krasner?
I don't know. I don't know.
Mr. Kwok, who is Max Krasner? And it says Mr. Kwok, can you please answer? For reference, Mr. Skalka. Who is Mr. Baldiga?
He was Mr. Kwok's bankruptcy counsel at the time.
If we could just scroll down. So you can continue at line 22, Mr. Skalka.
He has to double-check with you because I cannot read and cannot remember English names well. So just the names. You said Max. If it's the name Max, only I know Max. But if you add another name to it, I'm not sure. I don't know.
Do you know a Max with respect to Golden Spring?
Yes, I know.
And what is Max's role with Golden Spring?
I don't know.
Well, how do you know Max?
I don't remember.
Do you know more than one person by the name of Max?
For me, English name is very complicated. Like I can't remember the last name of my lawyer. If you add something else to Max, I don't know.
Mr. Kwok, the name Max Krasner is listed as a person to whom the mail for Golden Spring is directed to. Do you know why that is?
I only remember there is a Max in Golden Spring. I only know this one thing.
And what is Max's job at Golden Spring?
I'm not sure what role indiscernible, know he is in charge of finance, but I'm not sure.
What does he do for Golden Spring with respect to finances?
I was not involved in the management, so I don't know.
If Golden Spring gives you money, does it come through Max Krasner's efforts? Does he help make that happen?
I don't know, he didn't give me money in person.
Mr. Kwok, when you get money from Golden Spring, how do you get money? Does it come in the form of cash or something else?
From my son and indiscernible.
That gets repeated by the interpreter and the question is. My question was, how do you get money from your son? Does it come in the form of cash or some other form?
I don't understand what you mean by how, the word how. I never get money directly from them.
If you don't get money directly from your son, how do you get the money from your son? Where does it go?
I don't use cash and I don't use credit cards. My son and
Indiscernible. 1. They just pay my expenses for me. It's impossible for me to get any cash from them. Also, I don't have any bank accounts.
Mr. Kwok, do you have access to a credit card that was taken out by Golden Spring? And then Mr. Baldiga. Asked again, Mr. Kwok, do you have access to a credit card or a debit card provided to you by or through Golden Spring?
No.
Mr. Kwok. Are you obligated to pay Golden Spring back for the money that it pays on your behalf for your living expenses?
No, no need.
Mr. Ferguson said, Ms. Loftus, if we could show the witness what's marked as Government Exhibit 1401B. Your Honor. At this time the government offers other excerpts. They are 1404A and 1404B.
Mr. Kamraju said, no objection.
The court said, they are admitted.
Government's Exhibits 1401B, 1404A, 1404B received in evidence. By Mr. Ferguson.
I'll continue. Are these answers still from Mr. Kwok?
Yes.
And this is the same meeting of creditors, the same one we were looking at, another excerpt?
Yes.
I'll continue with the questions. What is your relationship to Golden Spring?
I don't understand what you mean by your question. I don't know how to answer your question.
Do you know what the word relationship means?
Relationship means love of things in China. It could be between husband and wife. It could be between government relationship, a financial relationship, money, and it could be a lot of things.
Mr. Ferguson said, Ms. Loftus, can you please publish?
So I don't know which one you mean. Is it a man/woman relationship or a money relationship or what?
Any relationship. What is it? What is your it says?
Indiscernible. And then question comes again, any relationship, what is yours to Golden Spring?
Now the relationship is between as he lends me money. I owe money to him. It helps me.
Why does he do this?
Because I was once a member of the Guo family.
Does Golden Spring pay the expenses of any other member of the Guo family?
Yes.
Which other members of the Guo family?
I don't know.
A year ago I asked you why does Golden Spring pay Mr. Podhasky, spelled, for services rendered to you in your individual capacity. I'm asking that again now. Why does Golden Spring pay Mr. Podhasky for services rendered to you in your individual capacity? And if we could scroll down. And then it says, can you start at line 12 where it says Mr. Kwok, how did he answer that?
I don't know.
Have you ever asked anyone why they pay for him to advise you?
I don't remember.
I asked you last year why did Golden Spring, New York pay that judgment on your behalf? And I was referring to the one my client Mr. Chang held against you. I'm asking you again. Why did Golden Spring, New York pay that judgment on your behalf?
It was money lended.
Why did Golden Spring loan you that money?
I don't have anything, so I borrowed from them.
Where did Golden Spring get the money from?
I don't know.
Where does Golden Spring get any money from?
I don't know.
Your son owns Golden Spring, correct?
Yes.
Does your son owe you any money?
No.
How does your son get the money that funds Golden Spring?
I don't know.
Did you ever provide your son with any seed capital?
No.
Have you ever invested in any of your son's businesses?
No.
When did Connecticut become your residence?
End of February or early March of 2020.
And if we could scroll down, Ms. Loftus. If we could now go to 1404A. Is this another excerpt from a meeting of creditors?
Yes.
What was the date of this meeting?
April 6, 2022.
And the answers here, are they from Mr. Kwok?
Yes.
So I will read the question again. Did you meet with anyone else beside your attorney to prepare for today's meeting while you were at the office?
I don't know what you mean, the other people.
Well, did you meet with anyone who worked for Golden Spring?
Yes, I meet Yvonne Wong.
And this was yesterday?
Yes, I met her yesterday.
Did you ask some questions of her yesterday?
No.
And tell me about your conversation with Ms. Wang?
What do you mean?
Well, I like to know what you talk about with her.
I asked her to arrange the food to eat and the coffee.
Is that all?
And also we talked about how to abolish Communist Party.
I want to make sure I get this right. I think you said and then Mr. Baldiga. If you can read line 6 again.
We talk about how to abolish Communist Party.
Ms. Wang is an officer of Golden Spring, correct?
Yes.
And you directed her to bring coffee, right?
No, I didn't direct her. I'm just hoping her to bring some coffee.
You were hoping or helping?
Help.
You were helping. Because my question to you was what you talked about with Ms. Wang. And I thought you said you asked her to bring some coffee or maybe even told her to bring some coffee?
No, your attorney office, you attorney office making and imagining things again.
What did you discuss with Ms. Wang yesterday?
Do you want me to talk about it in detail? I can talk about this for hours.
Not if the detail concerns how to overthrow the Chinese Communist Party, so I'll be more precise.
So you don't want us to abolish Chinese Communist Party? Our job is to abolish Chinese Communist Party.
And Mr. Baldiga says just answer the question. And the witness.
You don't have a question. You're just directing something.
We can just scroll down. Did you discuss with Yvette yesterday anything related to preparing for the meeting today?
Yes.
What did you discuss?
I asked her to bring those documents here.
Anything else?
I don't remember.
When was Lamp Capital created?
I don't know.
Why was Lamp Capital created?
I don't know.
Who created Lamp Capital?
My son.
How do you know that?
Because I borrow money from my son to pay attorney fee.
The question is, how do you know that your son created Lamp Capital?
Because my son said it.
He told you himself?
Yes.
Did he ask for any advice from you about whether to create Lamp Capital?
No.
Did he ask you your opinion on whether he should create Lamp Capital?
No.
Did he tell you why he was creating Lamp Capital?
No.
Thank you. Do you have an understanding of what business Lamp Capital is engaged in, if any?
No.
Mr. Ferguson said, Ms. Loftus let us now publish 1404b. Is this excerpt from this same creditors' meeting?
Yes.
If we could scroll down. And again, the answers in this excerpt are coming from Mr. Kwok?
Yes.
Among the documents that you filed were some specific notes, and one of those notes discusses the residents of Taconic Road or on Taconic Road. And then there's a reference to Mr. Harbach. Do you recall who he?
He's an attorney for at least one creditor, perhaps more.
If we can scroll down. I'll start at line 21. First question. Is it true that all expenses related to the Taconic Roadhouse are paid directly by family and family-controlled enterprises?
Yes.
Which family members?
My wife, sometime by my son.
Which family-controlled enterprises?
Which country, my wife?
Your wife's not an enterprise. I'm trying to ask which family-controlled enterprises pay the expenses for the Taconic House?
Greenwich, LLC.
Incidentally, how do you know that your wife or sometimes your son pay these expenses?
Because I live there.
Did you observe them pay the expenses?
Yes.
Is that ever at your request?
I don't remember I request anything.
Does Greenwich Land LLC, yes, Greenwich Land LLC, own any other real estate beside 373 Taconic Road?
I don't know.
The court said we're going to stop there. Members of the jury, you have graciously agreed to stay until 5 p.m. tomorrow. That's Tuesday. On Wednesday and Thursday we're going to go to 2:45, and on Friday you have the day off. The following week, Monday, the 1st of July, you have off. Tuesday and Wednesday you come in. Then Thursday and Friday, the 4th and the 5th, you have off. And so what I'm asking you to please think about this evening, you don't have to tell me now. Could you stay for a full day on Tuesday and Wednesday, July 2nd and 3rd? You can think about it and tell me tomorrow morning. In the meantime, don't discuss the case amongst yourselves or with anyone else. Don't permit anyone to discuss the case in your presence. Don't read, watch or listen to anything from any source that touches upon the subject matter of this case. Have a good evening.
The law clerk said, jury exiting.
Jury not present.
The court said, sir, you may step out of the courtroom. Don't discuss your testimony.
Witness temporarily excused.
The court said, please be seated. Is there anything before we reconvene in the morning?
Mr. Kumraju said, not from the defense, Your Honor.
Mr. Ferguson said, no, Your Honor. Just for context for the court, I have maybe I hope around 15 minutes left. This is the last excerpt. We're almost there, and then I think pretty short questioning after that.
The court said, great. All right. Have a good evening.
Adjourned to June 25, 2024 at 9 a.m.